Hi, I'm Wilson-Felis, and I'm here today to do a short tutorial on using a foam roller. Any foam roller will do, whether this is a Gold's Gym foam roller. It's firm, about 6 inches in diameter, and about 2 feet wide. Sometimes they're longer, sometimes they are thinner, sometimes they're more firm, and sometimes they have massage knobs on them, so trigger point activity and things like that. So we will do a practice today that includes the entire body, but specifically the hips and legs, the upper back and shoulders, and the rotator cuff girdles. So pretty much everything in our torso and a lot of work in our legs. So let's get started. So we'll begin by laying down on our back, supine. We're going to start in our hips, which is where the center of our weight is. So lay back, bring your feet flat, and we're going to do a gentle bridge and slide our roller underneath our sacrum. So you don't want it under your lumbar at all. Anywhere where there's no support, specifically the lumbar, is where you're going to stay away from today. So while we're here, it's really gentle. We're just going to be kind of rocking our pelvis back and forth. So you can walk your feet forward and pull on yourself. It's really subtle. It's only about an inch that I'm working here. And we're going to just roll back and forth and see what we feel. And then start to rock your knees from right to left. So we're no longer rolling lengthwise. We found that sacrum and we're just allowing the knees to window wiper on each side. Now do remember that the foam roller work can be quite uncomfortable while it's happening, but the relief and the benefits that are felt afterward are amazing. From here, we're going to get a bit deeper into those hips and glutes. So I'm going to grab onto the roller and prop myself up onto my elbows. If that's not available for you, lift your hips, get the roll out of the way, then sit up, and we'll bring this roller underneath our hips. So you can see I change my legs a lot. It could be that you choose to have straight legs. It could be that you choose to have bent knees. So we are going to be rolling the top aspect of our glutes. So again, it's really subtle. It's not a whole lot of movement. So as soon as I feel like I'm about to roll off of the ischial tuberosity, which are my sit bones, I roll back up. So we're again just kind of rolling over the sacrum here. And we're going to move into the glutes. So I'm going to be moving into this right glute, and so I'm going to lengthen that leg out, take the left leg and cross it over. Also my left hand comes over, so now the weight is really specifically focused in this right glute. So you can see I'm up on my toe and I just keep bending my right knee and straightening it, and it's massaging all through the side of the hip, inside the greater trochanter and the sacrum, where all those meaty glute muscles lay. You could get a little deeper into those muscles by dropping onto an elbow, and if you find something that is especially tender, you can always just stay there, get really subtle with it. You can see how all I'm doing is pointing and flexing my right foot, and it's changing that pressure so much. Other things you could do are lift the right leg, and that's going to put more pressure into that hip. So if you found a trigger point, you could always go there. Now of course, what we do on one side, we must do on the other. So we'll support ourselves with the right hand, take the left hand back around, uncross the left leg, lengthen the legs out or rebend the knees, roll it out, and we're going to move into the other side. So I lengthen the left leg, cross the right leg over top, adjust and slide the left hip onto the center of the roller and begin rolling out that tissue up to the top of the hip, all the way down to the ilium, or I should say the ischial tuberosity, which is your sit bone. So this is the top arc of the ilium, all the way through the meat of the glute to the ischial tuberosity and back. And I usually go until it's less tender. So if it's very tender, you can get really specific in there. Remember, you can drop down to that elbow and that creates more weight. Bending the knee or just simply flexing and pointing the foot works pretty well. Lifting the foot, getting up into those upper glute muscles. They can be tender. Woo! Give yourself some time to let those muscles relax. Perfect. From here, start to rotate back to center. Help yourself back onto the roller. Bent knees or straight legs. We're just rolling through the sacrum once again. And then I'm going to rock over the sacrum from glute to glute. Alright, we're going to be moving into the hamstrings next. So I'm just going to kind of roll the roller down to those ischial tuberosities where I'm actually sitting on the roller. And all I'm going to do is sink the heels into the mat or the floor and just flex the toes and point the toes. And that is going to massage the ischial tuberosities, which is right where the hamstrings attach. So you could keep your legs straight, or you can bend your knees a little bit and actually roll over that. And then we're going to move down into the meat of the hamstrings. So let the roll come onto your hamstrings, and you have to use your hands or your fingertips and just have fun with it and roll back and forth to the crease of your knees and to the hips. Couple of those, I know the arms get tired pretty quickly, so that's kind of just a fun way to do this. Alright, so let's take a break from that and drop down. Now I've found a spot in the back of the hamstrings, so I'm going to both stretch the hamstrings and create pressure in them at the same time. So my legs would be straight if this bolster wasn't here, but it's not under the knees, it's under the thighs. I'm going to reach for those ankles and then lengthen the back a little bit and round the back and just see where I feel sensation. Stretch maybe, but mostly just pressure in the backs of the thighs. And we'll move the spot, so bring your hands back. Move a little bit deeper into the backs of the thighs. My heels are still connected. My legs would be straight, but mostly it's just the pressure of my torso pushing into the thighs and creating that broadening of the tissue. Now bring our hands back. We're going to focus on the right thigh. So take your left leg again back over tippy toes, and we are just focusing on the right thigh. If you wanted to, you could even bring the left foot on top of the right thigh and create more pressure pushing down into the roller. We've got this option. Straighten out that mat. Or more pressure. But there's a lot of pressure on my hands. They'll get really strong doing it this way. Alright. From here, we're going to move to the outer thigh. Super tender. So, with the roller in higher thigh, hamstring, I'm going to take the left leg all the way over, and we are going to drop onto the right elbow. I'm on the side of my thigh, and it is tender. And I might have to crawl my hands up a little bit to draw that roller down towards the knee. Woo, it's tender. It's called the iliotibial band. All right, about 5 rolls on each side. So we'll go to the other side, unwinding the left leg, adjusting the hips. So now my left leg is going to be focused towards the center of the roller. The right leg crosses over. And we start to focus on the outside of the thigh. We'll move to the back of the thigh next, so we're going in reverse. So iliotibial band. If you'd like, you can drop onto the elbow. You have to crawl your way up to get all the way down to the outside of the knee, or help that roll down. Tender, that's for sure. And then I'm going to roll back, have a seat for just a second, adjust myself so that, again, the left thigh is on that bolster, on that roller. You can use your right leg for balance, or right foot can come on top of the left thigh for more pressure. And we'll drop it down. We'll try some gentle calf rolls. So it could just be doing figure 8s with your toes and knees, rolling through the meat. You could actually, roll down to your ankles, and then slightly up and just kind of squeegee back and forth. Or if you want to get really specific with it, again, you'll have to put some pressure onto your hands and roll back and forth. You can do one at a time, creating more pressure in the gastrocnemius belly of the muscle. All right. From here, release the arms, give them a little break. And we're going to take all of this energy and move it up into the upper back. So we'll take our roll out for just a moment. We're going to lay down onto our back. Bring this roller under your back. So we don't want it under the lumbar spine. Here's a little anatomy lesson for the day. So we've got 24 ribs, 12 on each side. You have 10 true ribs and 2 floating ribs. The 2, or 4 rather, so 2 on each side, 2 floating ribs are at the bottom, and that's kind of where your waist is, where this meat of your belly is. So we want to stay north of our floating ribs. There is an endangerment of actually breaking those floating ribs off if you foam roll them. So, of course, be mindful of that. So I'm going to bring myself up, lay my roller down, and make sure it's not lumbar. It's right above lumbar in the thoracic. Now, if you have long hair like me, you're going to want to make sure that your hair is pulled up, or else you're going to roll over it and it hurts. So then we lift our hips, lay back onto the roller, walk your feet forward, rolling up to your upper back. Roll to your mid back and back to your upper back. So you're keeping your hips lifted the whole time. We're going to bring the elbows up on either side of the face so that you're opening the space between your spine and your shoulder blades. So you're really rolling the medial aspect of the scapulas, the rhomboid muscles. And if you're feeling a spot in those shoulder blades that's really tender, then I'm going to find that spot and then drop the hips down. So now I'm at an angle and I'm anchored on that shoulder spot. And I'm going to roll to the right. Oh. then come back onto my shoulder blades and roll onto the left shoulder blade. Try it again on each side. Again, might be pretty uncomfortable as you're doing this, but later on, you'll feel better. But if there's anything that's ever excruciating, please back off a little bit, or don't do it as much, or omit it altogether. Alright, my roll is rolling up to my neck, so that means it's time to shift to our next position, which is neck. So you want to roll up to your neck. It's the occiput. Okay, we don't want to open the space between our top cervical vertebra too much. So I'm going to focus on the right occiput, which is that bone on the back of your head. And I'm going to just roll onto that occiput. I straighten the right leg, bend the left, and I'm just going to allow this roll to sink into that spot. My right arm is straight out, relaxed. And we'll just take a couple focused breaths as we allow the occiput to stretch away from the shoulder. And we'll start to roll towards the back of our neck. And try it on the other side. So you want to tee out your left arm. Scooch over to the right, begin to roll gently towards the left so that your right leg bends and crosses over. You're now going to start to roll onto the neck towards the occiput on the left side. So we want our left shoulder to be as grounded as possible. The right side of the chest might be trying to open. But really, you're trying to create space between the occiput, the head, and the shoulder. You can roll forward, roll back. It's very subtle because the bone is not very big, so we have to kind of move slowly and with intention. And as long as it feels good, it's doing good. We'll start to roll back onto our back. Press into your elbows and come up to seated for just a moment. We'll keep our roller there and we're going to start to move into the arms. So we already did the mid-back. It already feels better. I feel a lot looser already. But now we're going to do the outer arms. And the outer arms are especially helpful in allowing us to raise our arm up. You can probably see how that lengthens when my arm raises up. So let's do that and just kind of reach the arms out and up and see if there's any kind of tension underneath in the chest and the armpits. And we'll release the arms down, shoulder rolls a couple times. So the middle of our shoulder blades is called the medial aspect of the scapula. We're going to be working the lateral edge and it will be tender. So we're going to be working down, up from the angle of the scapula up into the armpit, okay? So it's called the axillary region anatomically. And so we're going to be working a lot of these armpit muscles like supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, teres major. So what I'm going to have you do is we're going to lay onto our right side. So I'm working my right underarm. And I'm going to work down towards the lats, latissimus dorsi, towards kind of the underside of my scapula. So it's near the bottom aspect. It's tender. It already is really, really sore. And so I have to hold my head up, and that's about the only tension we should have in the body. And so what I want you to do is roll back just a little bit. Roll forward towards the camera just a little bit. Oh, it's tender. Back and forth. And then we're going to move up a spot. So I lift my rib cage up, roll the roller up just about ½ an inch. Woo, that's really tender. And then I roll back, roll forward towards my chest, towards my armpit. Roll back again a couple times. And then I'm going to kind of roll that little tender spot out. There's some like gristle in there. There's some really tender little knots in the armpits. And then I'll lift up onto my elbow, roll that roller up deep into my armpit. And you might have to lengthen the arm out just a little bit more. I'm going to roll forward into the armpit. I'm going to roll back, opening the chest. Great lymphatic work here. But it can be tender, but afterward it feels so good. And then we just kind of roll back and forth, and my whole body's shifting. I'm pushing into my feet, into my knees to massage that out. And then all I'm going to do is roll onto the scapula, just the right scapula. And you might even lift your hips a little bit, but you might just be able to roll back and forth and find any residual spots just on the back of that shoulder blade. It can be pretty tender too. Alright, from here, let's roll ourselves up to seated and let's test it out. So, we did this right arm but not the left arm, so let's sweep our arm out, up overhead. Wow, the right arm just feels so free now. And the left one still feels like it needs to be done. So I'm going to take the roller over here so I can be facing you to the left. I'm going to drop my elbow, left elbow, down in alignment and start to scooch down to where I feel the angle, the lateral angle of the scapula. I'm going to lean back. I'm going to lean forward. Back again. Until I feel that little gristly spot. Might have to move the angle of the arm a little bit and then start to massage it out. And then we'll switch to a different spot. So lift up on your elbow and move that roller up laterally towards your armpit. And we're just shifting forward and back. It's really subtle, so you might have to switch positions to find something that works better for you. Mine works best just straight on the side. And then backwards, forwards. You might get some lumpies in there, some crunchy spots where you feel like your whole body goes clunk over top the knot. Tender. So let's find our last spot. There should be about 3 zones on the underarm. So I'm going to move this roller up into the crease of the axillary. My head's getting a little tired, so I'm going to use my top arm to support it now. And I'm going to roll back, forward, getting into those teres major and minor, infraspinatus, subscapularis. And then a little squeegee, just kind of rolling out that armpit. Can be so tender in there. And then what we're going to be doing is switching to the back aspect of the scapula. So I'm going to shift forward, and then I just roll my arm up around me and start to roll that scapula. And you can wing it out again if that feels better. It opens up the space for you. You could bring your arm up and get some different muscles that way. So try different angles. Try rolling into the roll and over the roll. So when I'm rolling over the roll, I'm typically going vertical, forward, backward, towards my feet, towards my head. If I'm going horizontal or into the roll, I'm going sideways. I'm leaning in with my body part. Oh my gosh, so tender. So I know I could probably use some more work in my left armpit. But for now, we're going to come on back up to center. Bring some blood back into your left arm, and let's try it out. Let's lift the arms up overhead. Much better. The last thing we're going to do for this tutorial is we're moving back to the center of our being, which is our pelvis, except we're going to be working the hip flexors, which are on the front sides of the thighs. So we're going to come onto hands and knees. Pardon me as I adjust my clothing. So the hip flexor is right here on the top of the thigh. It comes from ASIS, which is anterior superior iliac spine. It's your hip bones. And it comes all the way down, of course, to the top of your knee. And so we will be focusing on especially the higher attachments. So we're going to come onto hands and knees and drop onto elbows and rest the thighs, the tops of the thighs, on the roller. So this one's nice and simple. We're just army crawling forward so that the roll comes down to the knees, and then we're army crawling back towards the thighs. And army crawling back forward, and army crawling back towards the thighs. Back and forth just a couple times to work things out before we get just a little bit more specific. So I'm going to start on my right hip flexor. I get that roll right up into the crease, almost to ASIS. That would be right about here, but that's going into my gut, so that doesn't feel good. Right on the top of the thigh. I'm going to take my whole body and move out to the left so that just the right thigh is on it. Left knee comes out into a frog. So this is half frog pose. My right leg, the one that's on the bolster, I'm going to lift my toes and I'm going to army crawl forward and army crawl back. And you can get very specific and very subtle and just go back and forth in tiny little spots. It can be tender. It also kind of feels good sometimes. I imagine toothpaste being kind of squeezed out of the tube. And of course what we do on one side, we will do on the other. So go ahead and send your left leg back. I'm going to have to just adjust the roller. So I'm going to take the roller out, adjust my body out so that I'm on my left thigh. The right knee comes out into a half frog. And we're either army crawling forward and backward, or you can get really specific and just focus on 1 or 2 little inches of your hip flexor rolling back and forth. It can be quite tender. Imagining any kind of leftover junk in your legs, toxins being squeezed out like a tube of toothpaste. All right. From here, we'll press back up to hands and knees. Press up onto the knees real fast. Just kind of feel those thighs. And if you would like, you're more than welcome to lay in Shavasana and take a couple minutes to really feel all of the work that you've done. Maybe you sit and support yourself with a wall or with the back of a chair, legs crossed or out straight. Maybe just take a moment so that you can really bring your awareness into your body and notice all of those areas where we rolled our body. The sacrum, the center of our weight, the center of all movements. The glutes, which move our back and move our legs. The hamstrings, which allow us to climb up hills. The calves, which allow us to move our feet. The shoulder blades, which allow us to move our arms, our neck. The armpits, all the lymphatic work that we do there, and the underarms, as well as all the big movements of the arms. And finally moving back into the legs and the thighs, which again allow us to pull ourselves up hills and stop ourselves from sliding down. Thank you so much for joining me for this foam roller session. There's so much that you can do with these beautiful tools, so get creative with it and get specific with these tools. I'll be back next time. Hope to see you then. Namaste.